Okay, so thank you everyone for joining in. Welcome to the third talk, the third episode, I would say, of the series. Today we had Venky with us. As I was just mentioning, Venky probably doesn't need an introduction. Most of you will know him from all the conversations that he is on the Beckn Open Collective Discord thread. Um, since we mentioned Discord, I'll just request anyone who's not on Discord to get on the server, and I will very quickly kind of try to introduce Venky. I will not Venky, but also HumBhiOnline, and what this whole episode is going to be about. So Venky is the founder of HumBhiOnline, and started out with the application HumBhiOnline started out with a mission to provide every small seller with an opportunity to take their business online, and they were able to realize the potential that Beckn protocol can bring to the mission. And HumBhiOnline was one of the earliest adopters, very quickly implementing the Beckn protocol, and became the first open source Beckn-enabled retail seller platform, while contributing to the community with open source reference implementations for registry, gateway, and more recently, mobility BPP. HumBhiOnline is also helping several platform companies onboard onto public open networks like ONDC. And it is currently inviting collaborators to work on an open source reference Beckn network that would be launched as an open source network for home entrepreneurs. So that's a very quick intro into Venky and his work. And with that, I would like to very quickly hand it over to Venky, not taking any more time. Over to you, Venky.
Thanks, Shweta. Thanks for the intro. See, actually, it's very kind here, and it's basically like, as you said, it's like I've been involved with Beckn from very long time, and it's fortunate for me that I've been involved from that time. And like basically there was a like an instant connect that happened when we started talking about HumBhiOnline, and there was a time I'll go over the journey, and we'll talk about how I got in touch with Beckn and how it basically changed the way the journey was going through, and how the river was shaping up, so to speak. So yeah, we should basically start when we are ready, Shweta. So let me know when we want to start on the thing. You want to wait for some more time for people to join, or we are all set, we can start?
No, I think we are good. Let's go ahead. We've already waited for 5 minutes, and we are like 8 minutes already into the episode. So let's go ahead.
All right, cool. This sounds good. So yeah, so basically, so to some of the people who have heard HumBhiOnline right now, it's I mean, and have not heard about it before. It's basically what we started off with is like, it is like an e-shopping complex. I don't call it like a marketplace, because in a marketplace you typically buy from the marketplace provider, and in a shopping complex, like when you go to a shopping complex to buy things, you basically buy from the shopkeeper. So basically, HumBhiOnline, the way we thought of it, is the equivalent of a shopping complex, just a digital shopping complex, where you still go and buy from the seller, and you pay the seller, and you basically buy things. And because you're going to a shopping complex, you can pretty much see other sellers, and you can buy from them too. So that was a concept with which we started, and that's why the name shopping complex instead of a marketplace. So I'll be actually going over how I started this off, and like how we got in touch with Beckn, and how this whole journey shaped up, and where we are now. That's kind of like where we are going in this call. But definitely there will be places where we can stop, and we can ask questions, and we can basically have it like an interactive session, so that one firstly, you don't get bored. The second thing is also like in some of the things you might need clarity on some of the things that we're talking about, or some doubts and things like that. So it's better that we have it interactive. So basically, how it all started is as we all know that when Corona was at its peak, a lot of social entrepreneurs came up, and many things started shaping up. In fact, one of the good things that happened out of Corona is that the startup ecosystem really started thriving, because everybody started pitching in and trying to contribute in their own way, and saw that as an opportunity. Several people saw it as an opportunity to help out people, saw business opportunities. And I was actually kind of like in a sabbatical from working for more than 20 years. And I was basically, when I had Corona and the second wave and all that, I was thinking that what is it that, can be my contribution? So I basically pulled up with some, another colleague of mine who was working in a company called Wiggles.in. It's a pet care startup. So we got together and we said that we should do something for these the small sellers and the micro sellers who basically are having losing businesses to online e-commerce platforms because of the lockdown and several other things. So we said, let's try and do something, and that's how HumBhiOnline was born. And as we said, it's more like the idea was basically we wanted the sellers to put in their catalog and then share their digital presence with their customers and let the customers buy from them. And the whole idea was that people will do cross pollination, and the customers will find other shops. Like, you go to a shopping complex, you find other shops, you buy more things. And similarly, like when the only advantage in a digital shop is that you don't have a limitation of space. So a digital shopping complex could pretty much have any number of unlimited number of shops. So basically, anybody who wants to, even buyers who wanted to help out and all that, could basically ask their trusted sellers to, why don't you use HumBhiOnline and come on board. So we did have a very good beginning in terms of getting a good seller base in the system. But we had a fundamental flaw, because of which it didn't actually fly the way I thought it would fly. So the fundamental flaw that was there is it was basically sellers were scared to bring in their customers and inform their customers about their digital presence, because they were thinking that if they come to this place, my customers might end up buying from my competitors. And or like, as it is, my revenue is fairly dwindling because of all this stuff, and I don't mind coming online, but I want you to bring your own buyers, because I don't want to bring my customers and lose them to others. So there was a very different take to how sellers saw this whole the platform. And they said that I would definitely like it, but I can't bring my buyers in it. So basically, it kind of fell through, because buyer acquisition was not something I could take up. And it was fundamentally supposed to be a social cause, and we had to keep the cost low, and that's how it was basically attractive to the sellers. Now, if we can't bring in the buyers through like doing buyer acquisitions and stuff like that, obviously the cost will keep going up. So we said that this is not going to work. And while we were thinking about how can we still make some of these things work, and we try to convince some of these people that you really can't worry about the other shops and all that. You're also going to get customers and all that. But that fear is something which is psychological. You can't help much about it. So that was a time where basically, luckily for me, I was also, figuring out, how what can be done for. Is there a cheaper way of acquiring users and things like that? I read up about Beckn Foundation and their initiatives, and luckily for me, I knew Pramod Verma from my past life, and like I was just trying to touch base with him, who is like the co-founder in Beckn Foundation. And he put me in touch with Sujit Verma and Ravi Prakash, and we started having a conversation on, this is what I'm trying to do, and what is the objective of Beckn and things like that. And there was an instant philosophic connect. Like we try, like kind of we were all at the similar kind of stages in our life where we wanted to give back, and we were basically seeing how the monopolies were kind of coming up, and the small guys were kind to be marginalized. So we said there is something that needs to be done. So my take was from a platform side. Beckn's take was from a network and protocol kind of side. So I could see that there is a big synergy that we could, leverage there. So I decided to implement the Beckn protocol on HumBhi Online so that I can leverage the buyers on the BAPs of or the Beckn application platforms or the buyer platforms, to be able to leverage the buyers on that platform and get a business for my sellers. So the fear of the sellers could be mitigated, and at the same time, it is not as expensive because the buyer platforms are also needing to find sellers. So this whole idea of splitting this buyers and sellers into two different platforms kind of gave a very big leap of faith to this whole ecosystem, and I could see that there's a big synergy, and this is the way to go forward. There is no other way. And but after I kind of got into implementing and trying to go forward with it, there were a lot of challenges because Beckn had by that time had KOMN, and it was starting off with something called as an e-Kirana initiative, where they were trying to get some Kirana stores online, and I mean trying to get a network of for Kirana stores and things like that. So one of the things that I found is that we did not have a testing network or a gateway or a registry, and for people to play around and figure out how to use this stuff, and try out the implementation, work out, and all that kind of thing. It was kind of difficult because there was no testing network. So we started off with we initiated with the open source reference implementation for backend gateway and the registries and how participants can be added into registries and all that. Of course, NSDL was also part of the thing, and they had a registry which was being used in KOMN. So we learned from each other. We adapted the registry more. We have them contribute to the registry, initiative, and we basically created this kind of a test network, which is currently also hosted in registry.becknprotocol.io. That is, available for any volunteer who would want to test out, can self-register, and there is the reference gateway, which is already part of that network. And you can try out if you just want to play around. That's the right place to play around. It's a good playground. And then we started with the whole e-Kirana, mobility, ONDC working groups. Things were all shaping up, and there were many things coming up. I started volunteering in many of those things and helping the early participants with backend implementation, because I already started implementing for HumBhi Online. And during that time also, when the ONDC started talking, Government of India started talking about ONDC having a network of of platforms to be able to help the small sellers and stuff. So it was like everything was like coming together, and I said, okay, let me also be a seller app on ONDC, because Beckn was more of right now getting into. We were trying to get the networks set up and some test networks to play and all that, but we also needed somebody who would actually run it. So when we were talking about those kind of things, when we saw Beckn was being adopted by ONDC, and ONDC wanted to do things, and so it was a very logical step for HumBhi Online to get onto ONDC. So this was the thing to get onto ONDC, and how we started looking at ONDC and their backend implementation, and we started guiding ONDC as well as the other network participants who started joining ONDC in trying to make ONDC as a success. But for HumBhi Online itself, we had some challenges in trying to be a seller app in ONDC. So the primary challenge for HumBhi Online was the way the business model was structured in ONDC. So it's like kind of the way it's structured. This backend platforms where the network participants were the ones which were basically transacting. Money was transacted between the participants, and the actual provider of the network, provider in the network, or in the provider in HumBhi Online, or a seller in HumBhi Online, would not be settled directly unless that person became a BPP. So basically, it was kind of a artificial way of creating a micro seller to be like a platform, when actually he is incapable of doing settling and things like that, to in case there is returns and things like that. He can't basically do money settling to BAPs and things like that. So he can't become ideally a BPP. And we didn't want to collect money and settle and all that, because we wanted to make sure that the money goes directly from the buyer to the seller. We were kind of were hung up on, how that model needs to be. So we basically had some differences in terms of how the ideas of how the payments need to flow, or how the business model would be, or how the commission structures need to be. So there were some differences, and at that point, basically, one of the other things of micro sellers becoming BPP was the only way I could get in, but that would also pose too much load on the network technically, because every BPP had to be broadcasted for the searches, and that would just become way too many searches, because if every micro seller started getting requests, it would just flood the whole network. The other thing was related to the law of the land of if a seller wanted to sell online. This is kind of a loaded slide actually, so I'll go a little bit. Maybe after the next slide, I'll have some time where we can have some questions, and we can talk about some of the things about ONDC or otherwise with Beckn and things like that. So let me complete this and the next slide, and then then I'll open it for a few questions, and then we'll go forward. So in terms of the micro sellers, the one of the things in the law of the land right now is that any online seller has to have a GST a registration, as well as he has to collect and pay GST if he is making any online transaction. But actually, that thing is not required for an offline trader up to 20 lakhs. So that law is kind of coming in the way for micro sellers to actually go online also. So that has kind of been represented multiple times to Government of India, and that has been changed. And it will probably be in effect starting January of next year. So till then, it is kind of like, HumBhiOnline would not even be a legit business, so to speak. So we said, okay, let's withdraw from ONDC at the moment, and till we figure out what's the right model, or ONDC changes its model, or we figure out some other model that will be in between where we are at, or where so that's when we would go back to ONDC or whatever. So that was one conscious decision of getting HumBhiOnline out of ONDC. And then we also started supporting technically other participants with whom the current business model was pretty fine. Like many people were perfectly fine with the way the business model is there in ONDC, because that's the most logical one, and it's also the most popular one as of now. It is that what we were doing was slightly hatke or slightly different, so we had to figure out what we wanted to do. And so we took a break from ONDC, but we continue to help the other participants in going live with ONDC and all that. So as part of this whole initiative, we discovered that there was a steep learning curve in Beckn implementation for various reasons. But the implementations did took time to build, and ONDC's onboarding was taking time because of that. So the number of participants who were ready for production was few, and the people were trickling in. It was not going as fast. And we recognized that there's a need to solve that problem by making the implementation part of it, like a box, like a product in itself. So that so the concept of an accelerator was initiated, and Becknify was actually from HumBhiOnline was one of the first L1 accelerators, so to speak, who could be where people could onboard and build simplistic APIs which you're comfortable with, and Becknify would handle the heavy lifting of the Beckn protocol in terms of signatures and validations and async processing and all that kind of stuff. So that was something which we started off, and this was helping some of the the tech light entrepreneurs to come on board. We have a few entrepreneurs who are trying to be on in the staging environment, and I don't have anybody who has gone into production as yet, but many are in the different stages of integration. And the learning from Becknify we also used in building the what is now called as a protocol server v2. It's an open source accelerator from the community, and we also basically have put in some of our learnings from Becknify into how we can give asynchronous to synchronous and things like that. There are various learnings which from Beckn we contributed to the open source, and from whatever came from protocol v2, some good things we also took in, and like there's a lot of synergy in that aspect of it. So this Beckn became like another way of still being able to help out people to move towards the vision of what we were talking of, helping small sellers and all that. So it was not like the shape and form of how HumBhiOnline started and how it's moving is very, very continuously changing based on various things, factors that came on the way. But there is always a direction that we could figure out on how we could uh, continue to move on our vision of making the small sellers in independent and be able to make a livelihood. So the next few steps that we are currently working on, Shweta also talked about it in the beginning of the call. We are trying to create reference networks. Now, what we actually mean by this is more like a template network out of the box that any party wants to create. There is a huge traction for Beckn in India, outside India. There is also like private companies wanting to build private local, private Beckn networks and all that. So the power of Beckn we have just started scratching the surface, and everybody needs some decent handholding in trying to start this whole thing up. And there is a so one of the things that we started off as a reference network is essentially make sure that the gateway registry, self-registration, and all that process is in place for people to actually start a production network where you could have commercial models also preset, so that you can networks could take a out of the box technical network and put a commercial model on top of it, and basically say and launch a private or public network for any domain that they want. So that it should be that simple. So for that, we are currently also creating named commercial models. Like, for example, we have open source licenses like MIT, Apache Foundation, and Apache version 2, and all those kind of licenses. So we will basically have models which are like named models, which network can just say that, okay, we'll start a network, this is what it will be, our model, and we'll go forward with that. So that it's like kind of more things which have been figured out with the ONDC's experience, with KOMN experience, and with UHI and so many other people trying to implement Beckn and all that, all the community feedback and all that we are trying to take in, and we're trying to come up with playbooks for creating new networks. So that's basically where we are currently working on. And the Discord channel in this presentation in the end is a place where people can feel free to join. If they want to participate in the building of this reference networks, feel free to join us. And that's basically what has been our journey in HumBhiOnline. And we are planning to also host a live network with one of these open sourced reference network. We will have an instance of that live, and that would become the avatar of HumBhiOnline, where similar platforms which have micro sellers coming in, they could potentially utilize this, and they can be like a community driven network, but it will still be for real transactions. So that is something which we are working out a model on how that can work out, and that is something in under work. So that's kind of like has been my journey, and with HumBhiOnline and with Beckn and everything. So I would like to open the floor for questions, and I'll see how best we can answer, and not just about HumBhiOnline. Any questions related to Beckn or ONDC or anything else that is there in your mind, which you want to talk about. You have some doubts about the way things needs to be started for your specific application or something like that. Any kind of question that you want to ask, feel free to ask, and we'll see what we can do best to answer your questions. Yeah, Shweta, you want to
Thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Venky, for sharing this amazing journey. I see that there are. I have a question, but I see there are some questions in the chat, and the first one is about. Are you like? It's more about your awareness on how have others similar to you tackled some of these challenges. So Sanjeev, if you want, please go ahead, unmute yourself, and I think we might need a little more information. So when you say these challenges, which challenge exactly are you talking about? Harshit has a question, and then there's a question by Anup as well. So we go in that sequence. Sanjeev, would you like to go on mic?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks, Shweta. So I think Venkat was, referring to, I think some of the challenges, if I recall, he was talking about lack of a testing network or gateway or registry, things like that, right? And then he said, so certain things didn't work out for us, and then finally you adopted a slightly different avatar. You prior to that you went as a seller, and that didn't work. So were there others similar to you who kind of and you also realized that it had a steep learning curve, and implementations were taking time, all of that, right? So how
Yeah.
any notes from shared with others such as you, and different approaches that people took for some of these is what I wanted to.
See, actually, great question, Sanjeev. See, one thing is that most of the people who started off on the Beckn, the e-Kirana network or ONDC or any of these networks, they had something going. In case of my initiative, it was more like it never had taken off to begin with. So I had no baggage, so to speak. But the people had a lot of things going. Like they had a platform that which was live. They were trying to get more business for their current platform and things like that. So a lot of people were they already had something going. They took a direction which was very different from what I took. So some of them were perfectly fine with the way the commercial model came up in ONDC, saying like these are the various ways how money will be collected. This is how it will be settled to all these platforms and all that. People were perfectly fine with some of those decisions. So many people went down that path. There are very few people who are trying to do something, trying to create a private network or something like that, and exploring some opportunities like that. Because but primarily it is people have adopted to whatever is available, and because they anyway want to be live, they want to do something, and there is a much bigger stake for a lot of people who are joining in this, because they have a running business. They are trying to get more money for running the business, and trying to get business for for their sellers and all that. So obviously their decisions were differently influenced. So I'm not sure. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Full Sanjay. Yeah. Shweta, who was the next one?
So we have Harshit who has his hand raised. Harshit, would you like to go
Yeah,
next?
Shweta, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Inky. So,
Yes.
one question regarding I wanted to ask about. So there is a possibility that any participant can uh, use the Backendify. I mean, sorry, backend to create their own network. Let's say we are creating a public network. So, is there any kind of standard protocol which is there in place to enable the communication between the independent network, like? Uh, which I wanted to know, like, because there are possibilities that many companies can actually try to build their own network where they actually build different solutions, and now actually I'm not saying they can lock it, but if merchants are actually of different domains, use, let's say, fashion domains, electronic domains, so some merchants are using that domain, some merchants are using another network for doing their business. So how could is there like universal domain could be there where from the multiple networks the data could be flowing, like, is there any standard for that?
Good, Harshad, you're thinking all in the right directions. and there are no proper answers right now to some of your questions. But yes, definitely these are all valid possibilities. Like for example, someday somebody might build a bridge between, let's say, ONDC and another network, and that bridge might be a BAP on one network and might be a BPP on another network. It's possible, something like that. Another thing that's possible is that we have been talking, but it is something still in works. Is like we are thinking of, is there a need to have a, like, like how we have DNS names, right? So we are thinking if there is a way of extending that and see if there is a, like, a root registry of which like all these networks, ONDC, KOM, and everything is like a subnet of the root registry. So there are various kinds of thinking that's going on, and there is these have don't have answers today, but these have actually opened up mind for many people to think about and see what are the various things which are possible. So there are some experiments people have done with trying to connect two networks and be able to talk and things like that. And it's all in works. It's not something that's there is no playbook for that right now.
Okay. One more question. So regarding the adaptation actually about of any network, I'm just saying. So what I understood, is there any way to build a standard SDK which can be used uh, like can be used as a communication layer within the network by like upcoming startups and things. So that can actually simplify the task they have to work on for implementation
Correct.
for everything anything.
No, correct. So actually, there are see, some of the things that you mentioned about SDKs and things like that. There are some fundamental challenges. So if you look at it technically, there are so many frameworks, there are so many languages in which people have implemented and all that. And this kind of whatever SDK we do, would pretty much need to be per framework, per language. Might differences might come, unless you take an approach where your SDK is itself like an independent application and you are talking to it as through RESTful APIs, and you can basically use a separate app as a, like a proxy in between, which is what the protocol v2 server that we talked about is, exactly that. And which is also what is the fundamental solution of Becknify, where we basically do this in between layer of make it's like basically a cloud SDK or a URL based SDK. So you can essentially use that to make all your integration calls, and your API implementations would be simplified greatly by using an accelerator. So any new people who are trying to build backend integrations and stuff like that should evaluate whether it makes sense to use commercial accelerators, open source accelerators, or you want to write your own things on your own. All these options are available. The only thing is, in terms of timelines and in terms of the complexity and things like that, going with an accelerator is what is a good recommendation right now, because you going with any accelerator is a very good recommendation, because they would take care of backend version upgrades. They'll take care of things which like the maintenance of it, keeping it up and running, and all that kind of thing you will get when you basically go through an accelerator. So you can leverage those accelerators and make your integrations fairly small. So to answer to your question, the SDKs are shaping up more like a cloud-based adapter or a RESTful app within your in-premise solution and things like that. Those kind of SDKs have already come up because it's difficult to do it per language, per framework, and it just becomes too humongous.
One last question. So those solutions will be based on each network basis, or it will be like if some network was created by adopting the protocol defined by the backend, so that using a like a universal SDK, through any network they can like
That's the
that will
design of the
always.
SDK. Yeah, I got that. I understood your question. That's the design of the SDK, and it depends on how that network wants to run. So most of the things, if it is all backend and very small things are different and stuff like that. If it is adhering to the way backend protocol is meant to be and how it is supposed to be extended and all that, then these accelerators will work as it is. But sometimes networks do make changes in terms of how certain things might not have been there in the Beckn protocol, and they might not have added it or extended it the way in the recommended fashion. In those kind of situations, there would be something which is different, but it is possible to bring everybody under the same umbrella of open API specification, and having a network level open API specification against which you validate everything and go forward. So as long as you don't fundamentally shake the way you are doing authentication, fundamentally don't shake the structure of your messages and all that, it would be possible to do in a network independent fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
it's
So,
done.
let's give some others some chance to
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
the question. Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, Anup, you had mentioned something in the chat window. Do you want to talk about it?
Sure. Thanks, Sweta and Venkat. So I had questions related to the incremental increment rights that are happening in the backend API, right? So how easy or difficult or like time taking, right? It is to like build the incremental version of the API, right, into your application. I would like to understand from your experience, and also what are the steps, right, or the specific process that has worked well for you.
I didn't understand the incremental part.
So
What
like
it?
so like in case there is an new API that is getting
Okay.
created, or like a
Mhm.
signature is getting changed in terms of the uh, payload
Okay.
that is getting passed, right, so on.
Okay. Okay, so basically we have as part of Beckn Foundation, see, as you all know, there is Beckn, the protocol is, the foundation is only facilitating it, and it's all community driven. So basically in the Beckn protocol, we ensure that we have a working group called as a core working group. We make sure that the protocol does not break when you go from one version to another, unless it's like really talk through, and like unless it's like it's not possible to do something without breaking the protocol, we typically take care of backwards compatibility and things like that. So it should not when a new version of protocol comes, it won't shake up things so much that you will have to worry about it. And the only thing is that even the portions where you want to make use of new features which are available in a higher version of thing, obviously there will be some code changes that will be necessary for you to make use of the new features. But other than that, pretty much it should be, even if you don't do anything, it should pretty much work. But there may be some times where we do make breaking changes. But when we do make breaking changes, which are unavoidable in circumstances, we kind of would have we would have something. Initially it might be more like documentation of what are the changes you will need to do in your thing, kind of a stuff. But this is more speculative right now, because right now we are so young, we are so like building things in the very early stages of things going live and stuff like that. We have not had the situation so far that we are making breaking changes, but going ahead, I'm sure there will be times where we will make breaking changes, and we will have a process for handling it. Like, for example, we might have an open source adapter which might actually convert from backend JSON 1.0 to 2.0 kind of a thing, or something like that. So which kind of, but which also it might not come from backend. It might be like a community, somebody built an adapter, then he basically open sourced it and made it available for everyone else. Those kind of things can happen. But right now, the accelerators will definitely, they are committed to making sure that these things don't break their clients. So they make sure that this, when backend version changes, they kind of huddle up and try to make sure that these adapters are built. And if a lot of times this open source adapter in future might come up with from these accelerators, that accelerators might have initially created backend 1.x to 2.x or whatever, and they might throw it up as open source so that somebody else can pick it up. So those kind of things might happen. But basically that's the process that is being, the process that we're following in the core working group is primarily to make sure that the protocol doesn't break implementations. And if it breaks, we have clear documentation of how to do it, and the network will typically do a good management of the rollout, because the network will not suddenly say that we are going from this version to this version, all of you guys figure out. There is going to be a proper process of how that can be absorbed. So every network will do it differently, but we haven't reached that point yet. So there is not too much to talk about there actually
Got it.
from the incremental version standpoint.
Got it. Yeah, I think my question was mainly from a so many network participants running multiple versions of backend protocol, right? Or they might be at different stages, right? And the API signature was like something not having the version part of it, right? So that's where the question was that does it already support, or are they like
No, the signature and all those have already been thought through and we put. We don't plan to change that right now, but
good?
it is something which it is these kind of changes will not be like dropped like a bomb. These will all have a proper way of getting into streamlined into the process. So which again it's community driven process, and we are the people who basically figure out how. We together figure out that this is not going to work. This is going to break things. We should not release it like this. So it's also this whole people who are having stake in this whole thing. They are actually evolving the backend protocol. So it's not you don't have to worry about it. If something is going to mess you up, you have a say in saying don't do it. So you know what I'm saying, right?
Got it. Thanks for clarifying, Sweta.
Yeah, no issues. Kumar and Sanjeev. Let's go with Kumar.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Kumar Gadpati. I'm a big fan of everything that's going on in open source in India, and I have a quick question, a couple of questions actually. One is, I have seen recently ONDC onboarded Zoho, and from your description of HumBhiOnline, there seemed like a certain pattern overlap, or at least maybe I'm wrong in observing that way, but I felt like
Possibly
Zoho also.
That could be an that could be an
The
overlap.
similar pattern is what Zoho is doing. I just want to understand how. I mean, I read everything I could in the last 2 days, which when it came up. But how is Zoho integrating with ONDC, and what are the how does that impact or improve the number of orders or number of transmissions or people working on people accessing ONDC? What's your view on that, or what's your insight on that?
Actually, I read about ONDC only today. ONDC, about Zoho joining ONDC and stuff like that. And they are still, going to work on. They have said that they're going to join. They're going to make sure that shopkeepers can go live in a single day or something like that. They have made some things.
Correct.
Like that.
Yeah.
But, so I'm not really aware of the details of how they are. But from what limited understanding I have is they are trying to come as a tech service provider, trying to get make small shopkeepers to get onboarded easily and be able to be independent. They're like tech partners for like a Shopify kind of a thing. Like they are going to give you some. So they possibly might have some plugins and things like that is what I'm guessing. And this is all guesswork only because I don't have
Understood.
an insider information of this stuff. Yeah.
No, that's fair. That's fair because that's what I read up everything on a wiki and everything I could get my hands on, and I didn't quite follow how MSME micro person would get into ONDC through Zoho. So I thought maybe you'll because you went through the same struggle yourself.
Multiple ways, right? There are multiple ways. Currently, one of the ways is basically make each of the seller themselves as the BPP is one way how ONDC is taking them in. And the other thing is the tech party might say that don't worry, I will be the BPP. I will take care of the money handling and stuff like that. And I'll settle it with the sellers. Zoho might come up with that model too. I don't know what's the model they're coming up with.
Got it. And a separate question, which we are trying to do, and I think maybe we'll connect offline, is to see if we can do. I mean, I work in Morgan Stanley, and we're trying to set up an open source version for our education and helping the people. Is there a way we could jointly work with you to write something up in a detailed way to help enable or have fasten the Beckn adoption in some chapters? Like I'm looking at it as like a Raspberry Pi. I followed Raspberry Pi from the very beginning, a local chapter where they could implement and that sort of stuff. I mean, think about it because we'll have an offline conversation through the help from Shwetab.
And I think we are all part of the Discord channel, and if somebody is not part of the Beckn Open Collective Discord channel, please join so that we can have a party there and we can basically discuss
definitely.
figure out
Yeah.
if we need to have new channels to talk about stuff and things like that.
No,
Shweta
not new
will,
channel, but new chapter, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that
yeah,
we
yeah.
can increase. Got it. Okay,
Just
thank you.
I think,
very quickly, I wanted to mention, Kumar. I think that thread is already in progress. I think
Perfect.
we have some
Okay, okay.
volunteers that are already working on it. So we are already in the preparation phase of having setups in terms of
Oh, okay, okay.
the chapters. So yeah, you are
Okay,
looked in on
thank you.
that. So let's continue with the conversation there. Meanwhile, I see two more hand raises. One is Sanjeev and Rohit. Sanjeev, since you have a follow up, I guess can Rohit go ahead first? He's ahead in the queue.
Yeah. So my question is that actually I was trying to like implement the BAP and BPP APIs directly. So basically, I'm just implementing one API. So for BPP, I'm implementing a search method, and for BAP, I'm implementing an on search method. And also, according to the specification, like BAP should have a callback. So if I make a request to BPP, my BPP is able to call the BAP on search method. So that setup is working fine on local network. So I just wanted to test it through like I want to put my services on some kind of hosting service, and I want to test it using some kind of a backend gateway. I don't want to send request directly to BPP. I want my request
Got
to go through BG. So how can I
okay,
achieve?
definitely. Yes, actually in the Discord channel we have pinned a few messages, I think. But anyway, basically get into registry.becknprotocol.io,
Okay.
and you can register yourself as a BAP and as a BPP, both,
Okay.
and with your respective URLs. And if
Okay.
you don't have public URLs or domain-based URLs, you mean right now, you could also use some tools like ngrok. There
Okay.
are some people who are using ngrok,
Yeah.
which gives you like a domain-based, like through some tunnels and stuff. I'm not very clear about the technology of how they do it, but ngrok allows you to have a public URL coming into your laptop, and you can basically test it locally. So that's a possibility you could use.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think the keywords for you would be look at ngrok, look at registry.becknprotocol.io. Yeah,
Okay.
and you should be able to follow the thread for being able to register yourself. And from your BAP, if you fire on the gateway, it would basically hit your BPP, and from your BPP you can call back your BAP, and you can get that thing going in the playbook what we
Yeah.
have there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Somebody else had their hands raised.
I think Sanjeev was again
Yeah.
in the line.
Yeah, Sanjeev.
Please go ahead, Sanjeev.
Yeah, sorry, I was just talking and I lost my connection. So there's a lot of interest, and rightly so, on the small and the micro sellers, and how to get them on the network. Just curious to know if in your conversations with the large enterprises, right?
Yeah.
Those who are technologically far ahead,
Yes.
can build these things. But what is the response? From folks like some of the big private enterprises like Reliance, Tata's, and how are they? Are they eager to kind of plug and play and reach the length and breadth of the country, or is it more theory and they're just sitting back and waiting? I just curious to hear your thoughts, since you've been involved.
Actually, you said all the mixes there. From what I'm seeing, there are people who are just jumping into the currently, as if you're on ONDC Slack, or if you're on even Discord channels and stuff, you would see that everybody is watching. There is a lot of noise going on. There's a lot of information flow going on. Nobody wants to be left out. So people want to make sure that they are in the know of things, of what is happening. So many people are also looking at there are some people in different domains who have reached me, like in case of like Rail Yatri was reaching me for mobility. They're trying to put their buses inventory on ONDC, but ONDC has not yet opened up for buses or other mobility things right now, but they're planning to. So there are some there are other domains interest showing up, and ONDC is adapting to that and saying that maybe we'll start that soon, and as long as we have. So it is a it's a interactive thing that is going on right now. People are some people are in wait and watch mode also, like you mentioned. So we have people in the entire spectrum, and I can't really say one bucket saying that all the big guys are trying to be in a wait and watch or something. There are some people who are jumping into, and there are some people who are saying that I'll wait for some things to get ironed out before I can jump in. So all kinds of things are there. It's not like a one decision that people have taken. It's I mean, sometimes it is based on budget and their current initiatives that are already going on, their priorities, and they say, okay, we might do after 2 months. All kinds of things are there, but definitely they do want some hand holding, and some of the big guys are going down the consulting path because they want everything in house and they want all the protocol implementation, everything. They're not particular about jumping it very quickly and trying to get onto it like tomorrow and stuff like that. They don't mind taking a bit of time, but they want to make sure that the IP is with them, all those kind of things. A lot of people want to implement themselves because because of those kind of considerations, and they don't want their data to be outside. They don't want private keys to be floating outside and things like that. So there are like different people with different thought process, and so there's as you see, this has opened up. Basically, this whole Beckn and ONDC and all these kind of networks have opened up people into thinking things very differently, and there is a kind of a green field. It's an open ocean. Many people are coming up with different ideas. They're saying, okay, let me do it later, early, or this way or that way. I want to have IP. I want to quickly come on, so let me go use an accelerator and get in, and then I might build something on my own later. So all kinds of people are there. It's not like the one thing fits all kind of stuff.
Got it. Thanks, Venkat. That helps.
No issues, Sindhu. Yeah. Anybody else?
Do we have any other questions? Anup,
Anup.
I see hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just one small question related to the this registry.backendprotocol.io, right? So
Yeah.
You talked about registering a BPP and BAP, right?
Yeah.
Is this a production kind of thing or a beta test kind of setup?
This is the playground. Basically, here you can test your integration. Nobody is going to shout at you for having an incorrect integration. It is for you to try out, play around. But nobody is going to stop you from doing any transaction, but nobody owns this. So it's like you don't have any structure around maintenance and all this kind of stuff here. It is something which is available. You can make use of it. It's like a complete disclaimer kind of a place.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. There are no SLAs, nothing around it. So it's like it's hosted. You can play around. If there's some problem, reach out in Discord. We'll help you out. That's all. It's pretty much. It's useful for when you are doing the development, you are building the integration, and you don't want to mess up with somebody else's system and stuff like that. You can try out here. There is no issues.
Sure. Thanks, Venkat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nimesh, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey guys. So I have a question regarding the application side of ONDC. So I just wanted to take a use case. Say somebody commits to deliver a particular product within 2 days, right? So there's a terms and conditions at play here. So if the product is not delivered in 2 days, let's say they owe me some penalty. Now, does the ONDC account for these kind of terms and conditions on a scale?
I didn't get your full question, but basically the only thing I got from your question is the terms and conditions part of it. But so I don't want to answer it till I kind of understand your question completely. Can you what is it that is it related? Is it an ONDC question or a backend protocol question? Because I'm kind of like getting lost.
Actually, this is a ONDC question. So my concern from the user point of view. So say if I'm on ordering for a product, right? So you be listed on e-commerce sites.
You went on mute. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm actually next to a train station, so there's a huge noise here. Just give me a moment.
Okay.
While
Yeah.
we wait for
Sorry.
Nimesh, Nimesh, do you want to go ahead with the question?
Yeah. So, Venkat, actually, I do have a question related to, means you already mentioned about the challenges, but I just want to know if you have somewhere the rough notes that what all you have done to onboard to backend protocol, right? HumBhi Online. So, if you
Yeah,
have
it is
some
open
kind of
source, so you can see the
Mhm.
code. I will share it on GitHub. It is already there in GitHub. You can. I'm not sure I put that in the presentation. I'll add that to the presentation as a
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
that will be
reference
great.
basis.
Yeah, if you can
Yeah,
just
yeah. The
provide
whole
that.
thing is open.
And do
So
we have any sandbox or something available where we can just try and
for
means
HumBhi Online,
execute some of the
for
yeah,
HumBhi Online or
HumBhi
for
Online or anything means it's like
yeah, yeah.
if
HumBhi
I'm
Online is
creating a
there.
new BAP or BTP.
We have.
Yeah,
I'll put that reference also in the presentation in the end.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, we have a sandbox which is on that registry backend protocol. We have a thing working there, so you can play it.
okay, great, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, Animesh, you can go now. You had a question. Yeah, Animesh.
I think Animesh might have dropped off and he
Okay.
might be back, but let's just check with anyone if we have any more questions. I understand some of the questions might not get answered in this, and we would love to kind of make sure that we follow up with them on the Discord server. So please make sure that in case your question hasn't been answered completely, because some of the times if it's a very technical question, we might have to like take it offline. Please make sure we continue with those questions on the Discord server. I've just pasted the link in the chat. We have Paritosh in the queue next. Please go ahead, Paritosh.
Hi, Venkat. My question was around the reviews that are sent both ways for the buyer as well as the seller. Uh, would there be like a governing body that would have access to amending or deleting the reviews?
Okay, so this answer to this question is actually multi-layered. So basically, ideally, you should not be able to tamper anything of what somebody else has reviewed and stuff like that. So there are various checks and balance. Many of these things are network level decisions. So ONDC might do it in one way, KOMN might do another way, we might do it in another third way, fourth way, whatever. So, but definitely, what is there in the protocol is that everybody has their own reviews with themselves. So think of it like this: that a buyer can basically rate a seller, and the BPP will hold that rating about that seller within the BPP. So basically, it doesn't belong anywhere else other than the BPP. But BPP might use it in the search results, saying that this seller is a 3.5 rating seller or whatever. They might give some, or they might not give 3.5. They might say that this seller has got 20% returns, or they might have like some kind of other metrics that they might publish about their seller, so that the buyer may make some more informed choice. So these are some of the decisions that people can do. But in terms of data, the protocol wise, the data resides with the BPP or the BAP, wherever the call was made. So if I rate a BAP buyer, it will be with the BAP. If I rate a seller, it will be with the BPP, and there is no central party in it, because it's fundamentally designed to be distributed and not like a central place where you have all this data. But there are some thoughts people have floated, and I don't know what will happen tomorrow.
So
But
for
people do float thoughts of keeping things central, usable by everyone, and all those kind of things.
so for
Which
example,
yeah, go ahead, Paritosh. You were saying something.
yeah,
Sorry.
for example, like say if I'm a BPP, I'm a sole seller, I've registered as a BPP, I'm a fairly big player, right?
Okay.
Now
Okay.
someone's rated me, right?
Mhm.
So you're saying that the review system is distributed. Now,
No, 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 no. It is there with the review system is distributed, but your review will be only with you.
but it needs to be stored somewhere centrally, right?
Yeah, it will not central. There is nothing central. It is only with the BPP where it was rated.
So tomorrow, if someone else searches for that BPP, right, they'll be able to view that, right? The rating that was previously given by a different buyer.
They would be able to they can if the BPP chooses to return those information, they can view it.
So exactly, the BPP then
So it
has.
is right now, if you look at it more like in the protocol, it's more like a feedback loop in terms of like, when you go to a shop and they say, how did you like my experience? It is kind of like that right now in the protocol level. But people have been thinking of trying to put something as a third party agency, creating some rating separately, have a rating outside of the protocol, keep it as a common place where you can do all kinds of things are being explored. But fundamentally and in a purest way, it is more like a feedback. So it's not so much about keeping something central and punishing everyone. But you might use that, like you might like for example, a BPP might return that information about a seller, saying that this seller has 5% returns, or this seller has 80% repeat orders. So things like that, or it might say that it is rated 3.5. It depends on what the
So
certain tags they
is
might
it
want to
right?
return it.
Is it right to say that the BPP controls the feedback that is given?
Not controls. BPP
So if
stores the
can the
feedback that has
BPP
been given about a seller. Similarly, about a buyer, if somebody has posted any remarks, it will go to the seller. I can see Sujit probably also wanting to add to it. So, yeah, Sujit, go ahead. You wanted to add something to this?
No, Venki, thank you so much. I think I was just trying to also think through the articulation to the question that was being raised. I think where you're coming from is fundamentally on the aspect of rating as a means of trust. So I think somewhere maybe you're thinking that if the seller platform or the BPP controls that sort of instrument of trust about the ratings, obviously
exactly.
generally no seller platform or BPP platform would say that my seller is bad, so you can probably have the tendency to tamper that. So maybe the trust becomes an issue there. So I think it's a important sort of a discussions we are having, whether it's NDC or a bunch of other networks. So fundamentally, who kind of issues this trust? But I think that's a kind of an orthogonal point to I think what even Venki is trying to say, that fundamentally this is a peer-to-peer interaction where at a first level, yes, BPP can ask for a review, ask for a response, and it can also ask for some kind of a rating. Now, rating is something that the BPP may natively implement for itself, or there could be a rating mechanism that the collective of all the platforms, all BPPs and BAPs put together in that network, or if there is a network governance agency, let's say ONDC for ONDC network, can agree with. In either cases, the first thing is, of course, everybody who's asking for a review gets to keep a copy. And if required, you can even probably even digitally sign it, so that tomorrow, if you're asking for evidence, you're not kind of giving a transaction rating log of all the ratings that you received, which are not tampered because it's countersigned. The other thinking, especially at a network governance level, because you're not trying to create a native rating on your own BPP platform, but a network level which everybody understands. And I think that's where your question was, Paritosh. One of the things, therefore, is to see that can we create a network level rating? Now, that could be different types of architectural approaches or responses to that. One network authorities, network governance agencies, facilitator agencies can think of having a centralized sort of a ledger of all the ratings available, which could also be referred as part of your callback when you're doing a search and things like that. Or it could be sort of a decentralized one, but again, maybe driven by third party. The network agency itself may run the rating system, or it could have third parties decentralized to run rating systems, and probably some rating systems, some ratings keeper and ratings provider may have better ways of communicating ratings than the others. And it's not just so much about the rating itself, about that indication of reputation. And indication of reputation may not necessarily be a rating. It could even be things like badging. For example,
My whole point is, how do I establish trust in the counterparty that I'm trying to deal with?
yeah, so that's, I think, therefore the trust may not, your point is, yeah, so there is a inherent fallacy that the person who's kind of selling his trust credentials do not have the right to tamper and keep. There should be some kind of an agency independently validating that. To that extent, the the answer could be that you think of a network level reputation system. It could be rating or a badging services, which could be operated as a central thing or a decentralized multi-rating systems. All those architectural responses are possible, and some of these networks are actually doing that. I mean, I don't know, Paritosh, if I did any better job offering clarity, but the idea is that
understood
it's a trust discussion. It's not so much about a transaction discussion. So it requires a validation from a third party to some extent. Yeah.
So with the current architecture, is that possible, or would
Yeah,
there
it does. I mean, in the sense that it's a slightly so what do I call it? It's so if you look at the Beckn thing, it's a very layered design. So at the fundamental level, the core specs are all P2P. So there's nothing like a third party aware sort of a API exchange that happens. But what Beckn does is it creates a layer where a network level instruments can be overlaid, which is informed by the lower level P2P API structure. So that's possible. It just requires a little bit of that extra API extensions, which could be network specific. Some of the effort, Venky can probably talk about it, is to also see what can be the template. Well, like I said, off the box network templates, we will kind of show some possibilities on that layer. However, those will be a layer on top of the core. It's not in the core. Yeah.
Correct.
got it? Thanks, Sujit.
Thank you, Paritosh.
Thanks, Sujit, and thanks, Venky. I see a follow-up question from Anup, and then also another follow-up from Harshit. Since we have time, Anup, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, I think the question is related to the taxonomy and catalog related thing. I was going through the trust document that ONDC has published. So in that, taxonomy and catalog as a service were the two items, right, that were mentioned. I just wanted to understand about the high-level timelines, or these are in conceptual phases and so on. What is the kind of phasing that you are thinking on this?
Actually, what timelines for what? I didn't get you. What did you say?
So,
Timelines for the catalog?
Catalog as a service or something. Or taxonomy, okay. Right? So I saw that ONDC will define taxonomy and also offer some kind of catalog as a service, so that the product quality and image qualities are maintained.
Got it. Got it. So actually, I don't know the timelines. Okay. Yeah, Sujit, you wanted to say
sorry
something.
to be interrupting.
Yeah, no, sure.
No, I think this looks like a more ONDC specific question. So, Anup, even I wouldn't know, but I know for sure that there's definitely work happening. I would love to say it could be anytime soon, but I don't want to be committing on behalf of I've taken your question, and in a verbatim, I've just shared it with the people I know in ONDC. As soon as I get a response, I'll post it on Discord. Hope that helps.
Yeah. Thanks, Sujit. Thank you.
Yeah, Harshit, you're next.
Yes. So regarding the rating, I have a thought, just a thought actually. So rating can be, I was just picking on the words which Sujit and you and Paritosh was mentioning. So ratings could be divided into the two layers. I am saying one is that either transactional layer, and one the user is rating, like the Amazon and other. So the which user is rating, it can be peer-to-peer, and in this case, the interface has to be defined. Like if the BAP is not have an interface to even accept the sorry, I mean to show the ratings, there is no meaning of having that. So that is the one part. And another layer which I was referring to, which was when a transaction is initiated in the network, so there is a timestamp which is there, and there is a status which generally is there to track it, right? That what is the status of that each transaction. Couldn't we use that to statically find our compute the average, because this will be the very definite thing, like when the order was originated, how much time it took, does it I mean from the starting phase to end phase, what was the time has been there, I mean took for the merchant to deliver or complete the whole life cycle of that order. And I mean what was the phase point, like from one shift to another shift. I'm saying the phase by the transaction happened, like when it was initiated from the seller side, when it was initiated from the pickup side. So these are the, I think, statistical thing which will be there in the transaction itself. So I think those could be used as a one layer for identifying the trust within the network, right? So this seller has been active in this network since then, and the for each transaction they generally average take this much to deliver on So these are the computation things which
Yeah,
which
makes sense.
not
Makes
right.
sense. So this is what we were saying about, like, there are some kind of metrics. Some of these ratings are like user driven. Some could be metrics or statistical in nature, and these are actually things that some BPPs might do for their sellers anyway, and they might compute some of these things and keep it. But these and they could potentially share it, but it is not something that a third party can do, because that information is lying only with the BAP and BPP. So it is a feature of the BAP and BPP, so to speak, for their internal consumption today. And it is not something that is shared outside, unless like network comes up with sharing these type of information. Then they have to basically declare what they need to capture. So it won't be like an innovative statistical thing. Like a network might say you all need to capture these statistics and publish it along with your search result. If they come up with those kind of things, yes, definitely those kind of things will get added. But otherwise, it's left to everybody to do for their internal consumption right now.
So I was, sorry, I think Sujit was.
No, no, Venky, if I think it's just 2 points. I think just Venky's point, I just wanted to just maybe add just one extra point to what Venky's saying, completely in alignment with what Venky's saying. The two things, Harshit. So if I was just trying to pull out a document that is there in the GitHub where this rating, the idea of rating, what is rateable is fairly abstract. It's not just the service. Rateable could be the service provider, that particular transaction. So it's kind of, we're keeping it fairly abstract on what is rateable. That's one. So that I think addresses your question, that it's not just about the transaction, but also the service provider. It could probably even rateable on the platform itself. Even the platform can be rated, not just the seller on that platform. So I think that is fairly open on that front. And we're keeping it open, broad, so that multiple use cases can show up. The other point on the whole idea of, as Venky suggested, that network, at the network level, governance will probably say that this is how, these are the kind of telemetric metadata that we want to capture on transaction, which is also an indication of reputation, right? How well are you responding and things like that. But just want to be sure that it won't be standard, because the commerce transactions themselves are not standard. For example, I can pre-book a hotel, but the actual confirmation may happen 2 days later in a hotel industry. While in case of in a kirana store, you want that confirmation immediately, or in 30 seconds in case of a restaurant. So it's fairly asynchronous, and that's how the industry operates. Different sectors have different practices. So you cannot have one set of standards, but whatever it is, based on the sector and the new events, we can probably agree on certain kind of structured data which defines it's a good thing or it's below par or above par for that particular industry. But I think the use cases are fairly varied and diverse. And that aspect gets addressed through the whole reporting APIs that we are looking at, where you're reporting, where the network governance can say that start offering open data reporting APIs that includes this telemetry. And then to the point that Pardosh was mentioning, that there could be another reputation agency which factors those telemetry also and comes up with a batching or a rating thing. So to answer your question, it is possible, and there's some deliberation discussions that's been happening for a while. I think at least for a year now, in multiple discussions, whether it's ONDC specific or even in the Beckn communities. But yeah, the possibilities are quite immense. Venky, sorry if you want to add to this.
No, absolutely. I think you covered pretty much most of the things that I wanted to say. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, generally the statistical thing will be only originating when the order life cycle has been completed, right? Not on the running, I think.
It sort of depends. For example, my order terms, just to sort of complete on this thought, I'm saying that my terms of order, when I'm placing the order through a confirm API, my ability to my SLA to confirm the order itself is 1 day.
Right.
Now, if that is the term I've agreed with you on that particular term, where I said I will confirm within 1 day, if I didn't confirm, that itself is a telemetry to show, because the question is what are the terms in which your transactions are happening. On each term, you can do a rateable. Whether you're actually fulfilling that, it's not necessarily at the end of fulfillment of the overall service, the delivery of the item or the service. Based on the terms, you can create accordingly machine readable. Question is, do you want to keep it too granular and create a data sort of an exodus to deal with, or do you want to pick and choose some of the very vital ones that as an industry we can all agree that these are the essential that we should track? That's a choice we have, but literally every term that you're agreeing with could be considered for telemetric reputation systems. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I would kind of generalize that to promise. Basically, you are making promises in all these terms, agreements, and even the fact that I will confirm, I will deliver to you by this time, and all that. The seller is making promises, buyer is making promise about the payment and stuff like that. So basically, any promising that is happening, all those promises are rateable.
oh, okay. And so, just last thing. When this, I'm just saying that when generic abstraction will be established, there could be a open. I'm Sujit was saying that there is on this discussion going on. So there can be a telemetry APIs could be built where both ways the communication can happen. So if I'm clicking on a BAP merchant profile, or merchant is clicking on user profile, so they can the request can be initiated from the BAP to BPP and BPP to BAP to just fetch. So there can be a standard metric. I mean, the computation things can be defined where they can run it, or BAP can run it, and they can provide the abstract reputation thing of what we were saying to both sides. Like they can share with each other in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from the reputation discussions that I have been part of, and I'm just sharing the little wisdom that I gained from those interactions, is that there's no prejudging of who gets the right to offer reputations. General thinking is that maybe a buyer platform also wants to run its own reputation by harnessing all the necessary telemetry data, user rating data, and come up with its own reputation system. Should we allow that? Should we not allow that? I generally think that that freedom should be available, saying that I can rate better than my other BAPs or buyer platforms. That's a choice. Or should it be a third-party reputation agency? Maybe that could also be allowed. I mean, why should we not probably allow that? Because probably the trust, as somebody we were discussing, could be third-party too. Or BPP can also run its own trusts, based on how they are actually using their own data to self-credentialize themselves, saying that, hey, I actually want to showcase that I do better, and it's completely evidence-based, trusted-based, but I do it better because it projects me differently, projects me better. Some people are willing to buy that reputation. So the choice is available with all. The question is, does the network and the underlying protocols allows you to consume whatever data it takes to generate the reputation? That is fundamentally that I think the design and architecture should enable, whether it's at the core protocol level or the network level. That's essentially should be the enabling design we should look at.
So we are not like saying that there should be a rules that define which all the BAP or BPP will be following that to compute the reputation, because I'm just saying. So we are not saying
So
that.
again, it depends on that particular network.
The rules are made by the network, Harshit.
Yeah.
Okay.
The network may allow you to define your own reputation, may say that, no, let's stick to this. It also depends on the maturity of the platforms, the maturity of the network itself. Maybe to begin with, they may want to have a tighter sort of an integrity in the behavior. So they'll say that, okay, let's stick to one. Over a period of time, they're saying that, okay, now that this is working and it's not breaking up, at a second stage of maturity, they say, no, I think we can allow you to also run your own independent reputation system. So these are all evolutions, life cycle based. We don't know at what point what is relevant, but I would like to take a more life cycle view to this rather than taking A versus B decision. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
The only thing, Harshit, is basically we want to make sure in protocol wise we are not preventing anything that people might want to do. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, Dipanshu had something on the chat. He just mentioned my name. Is there something you wanted to talk about, Dipanshu? I think he's not in the call. Maybe.
Dipanshu, are you here? I don't see him actually, Venky.
Okay, no problem. I think we have.
I think there was one question which someone was asking. I think he's not there, which was related to what happens when the order that falls between the dispute thing. I think he was referring to that when the dispute happened between the merchant or delivery partner or buyer and seller, like who will be handling. So I think someone was asking. I think, right? So because let's say order is placed and the delivery agent takes the order, but he does not deliver on time. So what will be the penalty if you remember, like he was asking?
Okay. Okay. I think those questions are, again, as we said, it's all the network choice and what somebody is promising and how that reputation is altering. And it again goes back to reputation and those kind of discussions. And these are, see, many of these things, Harshit, also is like not clear answers which will be available immediately. Those are also things which go through deliberation and evaluation, and then you basically come up. The network decides on what we need to, what we can agree on, and then we go with that agreement. So these things are not like rules we will bake into the protocol. These are things that people agree in the network.
Yeah, it will be network theory. Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Harshit, and thanks a lot, Venky. We are very close to closing of the session. It's 6:55 here in India, and we try to close it by 7. And I loved how conversational this particular session was. I think we were able to have a lot of conversations, and I would look forward to many similar, I would say, episodes where we are able to have the amount of conversation we had today. With that, I would also quickly like to request anyone and everyone who's on the call, if you have a question that you think wasn't completely answered here, obviously because of the limited time we have or the nature of the question, please feel free to go on to Beckn Open Collective and post your question there, and we would love to take the conversation on there. In case you don't find a dedicated thread for your question, please post it on the main channel. I think the link is already the link to join the Discord server is already in the chat. If you don't see it, I'm just posting it again. Please make sure you are on the Discord channel. And thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in. I think we have addressed all the questions. And thanks a lot, Venky, for your time and sharing your experience. Thanks a lot, Sujit, for bringing in the broader perspective on certain topics. And thanks a lot to each and everyone who were able to make time for this. We'll be back again in the next to next week, same time on a Friday, and we hope to see you all there. But till then, we continue the conversations on the Beckn Open Collective. Thanks a lot, everyone, again. And with this, we are done with this particular episode. The recording and the presentation will be made available sometimes like within 2 days, I would say, to all the attendees. And I thank everyone again. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Shweta. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.